just touch base with you for a moment? How many of you, raise your hand up high so I can see it, how many of you know who this alien is? Good.
Okay.
You pointed at Blonde on Blonde when you asked this alien.
What?
You pointed at Bob when you said, Blonde on Blonde. Thank you.
Hello? Yes. This alien. Not this alien. This alien. Raise your hand up high if you know who it is. Alright. This might go okay. You might have to talk to your neighbor quietly. Okay.
He's getting batteries. Until then, I guess.
All right. How many of you have seen a phylogenetic tree like this? Oh, good. Okay. So this is life on Earth. This is a map of life on Earth made from comparing sequences of genes. So we can.
I think the batteries just might be dead. He's getting new batteries. So.
Should we just chill out with the music? What should we do?
If you can yell at me.
Oh, I can't yell. They're never gonna hear me. It's just me. Have another drink. Cheers. Oh yeah.
Cheers, Gus.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got technical difficulties, so just give us a minute here.
Oh, yes.
Don't trust those in the box.
Hello. Oh, good. Okay, now we got the Energizer Bunny right in here. All right. So here's a phylogenetic tree. Here's life on Earth. It's a map made from genes. And it's nice because you can use it to show certain things about Earth life as we know it. And we're going to talk about that for a minute. We're going to try to boil down what Earth life is like. So then we can think about some other kinds of life. So I'm going to boil down what Earth life is like. So here, you are here. Here's animals. Here's fungi. Here's plants. Okay. That's you. That's all the life you can see with your eyes, right here. And the rest you can't see with your eyes because it's too small. So that's something serious about Earth life. So it's mainly small. Okay, all the things you see around you are anomalous and large. Okay, so what is it about your eye? Your eye can see things that are about a little bit narrower than the width of a human hair. Something between dust and hair. And so that's about this size range. This is 1 micron and this is 100 microns. So 1/10 of a millimeter down to almost 1,000. And then just to compare that to light, because astronomers love to think about light and wavelengths of light, right? Here's the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Here's radio waves over here. We're going to hear maybe about radio waves. Maybe you've already heard about them. Here's gamma rays up here, very short wavelengths. The light that you can see with your eye is in here. Okay, and it just so happens that those wavelengths of light are almost the wrong size to see microbes. So you can see here's a light microscope, and lots of microbes are actually too small to see with the microscope. So we're really in trouble. We have to use X-rays and electron beams and things to see most of the life on Earth. Okay, so that tiny life that you've never seen is incredibly various. So here are just some protists. These are single-celled eukaryotes. This is to say nothing of the other two domains of life. This is just the things that are most like us, things with a true nucleus. And you can see they range in size over an incredible degree. So they're very diverse. And their size is everything from the size of a bacterium, which is more like 2 microns, all the way up to about 2 millimeters. Giant amoebas are things you can actually see if they're moving with your eyes. Okay. So now I want to talk for a second about how we got to knowing about what this tree looks like. So here's another version of that phylogenetic tree. And here's how the tree looked in 1987, okay, when I was graduating from high school. And here's how the tree looked 10 years later when I was in grad school. And here is how it looked a few years ago. So we are just now meeting most of the life forms that are on the Earth. Not only can we not see most of them, but we're just meeting most of them. And actually, we haven't met most of them yet. And let me just try to help you with that a little bit. So this is how the tree looks today, or at least last year. And there's sort of an exponential growth in the microbes that we're meeting. So every minute that goes by, we're meeting more and we're meeting microbes faster and faster. And that's really exciting. It's exciting to be me right now. So all of these things here that are in this purple-gray color, those are things we met last year. So the tree of life is expanding at an alarming rate. So how dense is this going to get? So if you do some fancy statistics, and you think about how many new organisms you pick out of the environment if you go take a survey, you can make kind of a collector's curve, and you can surmise that Earth actually has more than 1 trillion species. So out of those trillion species, actually more than 1 trillion species, most of which you can't see, we have retrieved something like 1 million of them at least once. Yes. What is OTU? Thank you for asking that. OTU is how microbiologists say species. Okay, OTU means species. That's a good question. Okay, so here's this fancy statistics that's based on data that we have so far that says there are trillions of species on Earth, and we've met about 1 million of them. Okay, here's the number of stars in the galaxy. We're way cooler than astronomers. Just saying. Okay, so here's the summary so far. Earth has trillions of species, of which we've detected 1 million at least once. Here's another thing about this life that even the life that we've met, 60% of the genes that's in that life that we've already met, we have no idea what it means. Okay. If you were talking to an alien, intelligent alien species, and you were in a bar and you were having a drink and you were chatting them up, and you wanted to tell them what Earth life was like, what would you say? Well, you could say, oh, well, it's mainly small. There are lots of different kinds, so many colors. But, I mean, you would want to boil it down for them. What is it like? So most of you would say, most of you have got this loaded in your memory, that life needs water, right? You all have that loaded? Solid RAM? Okay. So, has to have liquid water to be Earth-like life. All Earth-like life has liquid water as a solvent. And actually, this is the geeky biochemistry part that I won't dwell on unless you ask me to. All Earth life harvests energy either from light or from electrons, which want to be in a different place. And actually, the light is just a trick. You turn the light into an electron that doesn't want to be where it is, and then it's just all the same. So basically, electrons moving around, going from a place where they don't want to be to the place where they'd rather be, is how life gets energy. So if you have a place where electrons are all happy where they are and they don't want to move, you can't have Earth-like life. Okay, this is for the biochemistry buffs in the room. This is the picture of an electron transport chain. We'll just move on. This is Peter Mitchell. Peter Mitchell won the Nobel Prize for figuring out how this really works in a cell. It was really important, really amazing work, and he was maybe one of the first astrobiologists, because how can you study life elsewhere if you don't know what Earth life is like? And Peter Mitchell really did help to figure out what Earth life is like by figuring out this theory. Okay, here is the part of the electromagnetic spectrum that is visible to our eye. And you might ask, well, why is this the part? Why are our eyes tuned to that part? Well, it is not a coincidence that this is also the part that microbes can harvest to make energy. It's because we're all made of the same kinds of molecules, and other wavelengths of light are often damaging. So your eyes are descendants of this predisposition that Earth-like life has for this visible spectrum. So not a coincidence at all. Okay, and in that range of wavelengths of light, within the visible range, there is a biochemical in a microbe somewhere that can harvest that wavelength. So here's just a few examples of chemicals that microbes use to turn light into electrons that are uncomfortable. Okay, so where are we now? 30 trillion species or so. Liquid water harvests energy from uncomfortable electrons. You also probably have it loaded that it's carbon-based, right? You know that your body is, after you take out the water, 50% carbon. So carbon, it turns out, is really common in the universe. It's really common. And life actually requires some other elements, but they're not the weird ones. They're not the rare ones. They're the common ones. Let's look at that. So here's a picture of the atomic number of elements up to lead, and here's the logarithmic abundance, relative abundance of those elements. So carbon here is one of the most abundant elements anywhere. Oxygen, your body's half water, most of that is oxygen. Hydrogen is in there. Here is nitrogen, also extremely abundant. Iron is used as a catalyst. Phosphorus is in here, sulfur is in here. Anyway, the point is that they're the common elements. It's not some strange filtering that life is doing. Life is made out of the stuff that's out there. Okay, here's something you may or may not know. The fact that we can make a map like this that joins in the center means that all of life that's now on the Earth has a common ancestor. Otherwise, these three domains would not come together in this link. So this is not to say that there are branches of life that are extinct that had a different ancestor, but all the life that made it to now has a common ancestor. And that's kind of important. It means we all have similar characteristics because we descended from the same line. Okay, and the same genetic code. This also follows from that last idea. And one more biochemical before we drown in our beer. Common energy currency. So you take the money that you get from the uncomfortable electron and you turn it into dollar bills. The dollar bills are called adenosine triphosphate. That's this molecule. This is the money. And every living cell on Earth uses this money. It is not cryptocurrency. It is the currency. There is no other currency. Not really. Okay. So we're doing pretty good. We're boiling it down for our guy next to us at the bar, or gal, or whatever multi-gendered alien it might be. So common ancestor, same genetic code, common energy currency. Okay, so now we're really getting somewhere. We're starting to really give this alien a picture of who we are. Okay, I'm gonna slip through these pretty fast because we're running out of time. This is such a cool life form. It's not one life form, it's 4. Okay, it's a protist, it's a single cell. Each one of those stripes on the surface of the cell is a bacterium that is a specific strain of a specific species that only lives with this specific protist. Okay, and inside the protist there are other protists, and those have symbionts too. So this is a quadruple symbiosis, absolutely required. This organism doesn't exist any other way. And this is a characteristic of life. So all of you are sitting there breathing, but it's not you breathing, it's your symbionts breathing. It's your mitochondria breathing, and they're more numerous than your cells, and they came from somewhere else. Okay, so inside you, there are all these energy factors breathing, and you're just a mobile home. That's what you are. So we're symbiotic. Here is a picture. This is time, this is 4 billion years, and here's the present day. This shows you a schematic for how we got our symbionts, including mitochondria. It's complicated, but the point is that we all have symbionts. Almost every life form, if not all, has symbionts. So Earth life is symbiotic. Here's a similar diagram that shows the acquisition of plastids. The most famous plastid is a chloroplast that is in green plants. Those things used to be free-living cyanobacteria, and all plants and algae have these endosymbionts inside them. Okay, now we're dialed in. We have all these things we can tell the alien about who we are. Okay, symbiosis and gene exchange. Symbiosis facilitates the exchange of genetic information because the cells are right up next to each other. So not only are we symbiotic, but we're sharing information. Okay, here it comes. This is this close to the end. You're almost there. No more biochemicals, I promise. Okay, here is the biogeologic clock. Okay, and so here at midnight is the formation of the Earth. And here's the formation of the moon. Here is the end of the late heavy bombardment. Scary. And here is where life, we think, was certainly well established. Almost as soon as it possibly could be, almost as soon as there's evidence for liquid water, there's also evidence for life. That means that it's pretty darn robust. Okay, it wanted to happen. And it also had all kinds of tribulations, but it just keeps going and getting more rich and more diverse and more communicative. So here it is, it's just going forward for 4 billion years. Okay, but if you think about looking for life elsewhere, here's the thing about Earth life, that it's mainly still microscopic, right? We said that? Okay. It's mainly microscopic now. And actually, it was only microscopic for 8/9 of Earth's history. So if you, depending on the moment when you looked at the Earth in time, you may or may not have seen any multicellular life. Only the last little bit did things get multicellular. So it's really an extraneous characteristic. Earth life is not really characteristically multicellular. All right. Here are a couple of other fun facts that you maybe have said, oh, she missed, oh, this is 2 fun facts for you to take home. And while you're looking at that, I will take any questions. Jason?
Shadow biosphere.
Jason is curious about the shadow biosphere. Jason, what do you mean by the shadow biosphere?
Could there be a whole line that's not on your map living here on Earth with us and we don't even know it because we don't know what to look for?
Yes, the shadow biosphere is a very exciting and scary idea. It is essentially that we don't know about this other biosphere, this other kind of Earth-like life that violates all of these principles I just told you, because we don't know how to look for it. So we can't see it because we don't know what it is. It's kind of chicken-egg problem, really consternating, entirely possible in theory. Oh, I was waiting. Thank you for asking that question. Are viruses life? Viruses are. Okay, here's the thing about life. You know it when you see it, but it's really hard to define what it is, right? So this is part of the hard to define what it is. It doesn't have a cell membrane, but it can't survive without a cell membrane pumping those electrons, making them more comfortable. I don't know. Jury's out, man. It's almost a kind of academic because they're out there and they're part of the information exchange. So I would lump them in personally. I'm a lumper rather than a splitter, but I think they're in there because they're part of the information exchange and they're ubiquitous. There are no kinds of cells that are not infected by some kind of virus.
Well, since you're lumping the viruses in, are they included in that 30 trillion forms of life?
Absolutely not. That would just bust the thing wide open.
What was the question?
Yeah, sorry. The question was, am I including viruses in my 30 trillion species estimate? So no, they're not in there.
That's inconsistent.
Look, if that's the best you can do, I'm super psyched. Yes.
Given that 8/9 of total life is single-celled, and of the final 9, we're the only ones intelligent, do you think it's pompous or amazing that we're the only species studying the rest of the other species?
Okay, let me just see if I can boil that down. This child wants to know if given how much of life is single-celled and for how long life was only single-celled, is it pompous or amazing that
that we're studying the rest of the life?
that we're here thinking about it all and drinking our beer? That is a philosophical question. I tend to be schizophrenic on that topic. I sometimes feel pompous and I sometimes feel amazed. And I'm not sure. I think it is quite remarkable. My philosophical stance about life elsewhere is that, look, it's made out of the common elements. Chemistry holds, physics holds. It happened, it wanted to happen, it happened as soon as it possibly could. It's gonna happen. The next level of complexity, however, is an excellent segue into our next speaker's topic, which is how much of life out there is maybe thoughtful. So I don't know how to answer your question, but maybe Jason does.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? So life is really diverse, but the redox cofactors that it uses are really not. So do you think it's better to look for redox cofactors rather than actually
Nerd alert. Destroy. Okay. This person is asking about redox cofactors. So let me just translate. Redox cofactors are the things that cells use to move uncomfortable electrons around. And this person is right. There aren't that many of them. There are a couple of tricks in the chemistry book from moving uncomfortable electrons around, and they get used over and over and over again. So rather than looking for some very fancy biomolecule that maybe only a few species makes, why not look for that redox cofactor, because all of life probably is using it, and I think that's a great idea.
Temperature range -40, 233 to 395. Is that theoretical or observed?
That is observed. The question was, is this temperature range written up here, is that theoretical or observed? And this is the observed range. And the reason why, at least I can tell you about the upper range. This -40 is probably very salty, very cold brine. Okay, so the water's not frozen because it's super salty. This water is very hot water, but it's under high pressure and therefore it's not boiling. So if you freeze the water or you boil the water, no more life. The life has to have liquid water. And so this is an observed range, but it fits with theory.
Let's talk to Macalady again.